With concussions in football becoming a growing concern, we looked at the latest innovations in helmet-wearing technology at the Riddell Sports headquarters.
In part 1 of Head Armor, we showed you precision fit helmets. In part 2, we show you how football helmets are tested and deemed safe enough to be worn on the field.
Here inside the Riddell headquarters lies the minds of the #1 football equipment manufacturers in the entire world. Last time on Head Armor, you got a behind-the-scenes look at exactly what they're doing to better protect athletes from head injuries. So with one of their latest innovations in helmet-wearing technology, they created precision fit helmets. The first and only helmet on the market that matches every single part of a player's head.
So Doug's going to start by doing the first scan.
In episode 1, you saw the first couple of steps in this multi-step process. It begins with a visible light scan to the surface of a player's head with their helmet on and off. The tech is so impressive that this scan is accurate to just plus or minus ½ a millimeter.
That's how the collection, the scanning collection works.
Now what you're still yet to see is what happens next. When the scan is complete, it's sent into computer space where one of the final steps in creating a custom pad set begins. And what better way to show you that than with one of the greatest minds to ever play the game of football.
And so what we're looking at here today is Peyton Manning's scan. So we take his head mesh here and we would cut all of these other components with this head mesh. So you'll see it go through the different operations, taking the head mesh, cutting it, cutting the extra pad sets away, or the extra amount from the pad sets away, and what we're left with is a pad set that perfectly matches Peyton Manning's head.
So through this helmet scanning process, in 2019, Riddell took their next step in innovation by creating Diamond technology. It's an upgrade of the DNA protective material inside the helmet to 3D printed material that can better handle impact forces.
So the interesting part of this, though, is that everywhere this front pad has a different durometer on the backside, a different stiffness on the backside of this pad than it does on the front pad of the side. So you get a nice soft feeling pad on the front side where your head actually touches, and on the backside it's a much denser, stiffer part. And we can do that on any pad depending on what we need and what kind of response we need from those various pads.
So what response do these various pads give off? Well, let's find out.
This is a test head form, standardized test head form that we use for evaluating our helmets. Go ahead and grab that. Most people have no idea that their head weighs that much.
I was just thinking.
But that is actual size and weight for an adult male head form. It looks like this on the inside if you section it apart. So it's actually a pretty sophisticated piece of test equipment. It's made to act and resonate like an actual human head. This device is called a linear impactor or pneumatic ram. This is set up right now to mimic the types of testing that the National Football League does to evaluate helmets. It's made to mimic the head and upper torso of one helmeted player striking another helmeted player on the field.
In order to gather information from the test models, there's some instrumentation mounted inside of them. That allows Riddell to measure a number of different metrics that determine how well a helmet is attenuating to the forces of impact.
That's the lowest velocity that we would use to replicate the testing that the NFL does.
There's a lot of things that we couldn't see with the natural eye.
Yeah.
And you have to slow this stuff down for you to actually see some of the things.
There's kind of 3 different bodies that are writing test methodologies right now. I mean, one of them is National Football League and their helmet rankings. The second one is Virginia Tech and their helmet ratings. They use a different methodology for evaluating. And then the third is NOCSE, the National Operating Committee on Standards for Athletic Equipment, and they write the standards that are used for protective gear in a lot of team sports, and football helmets and face guards being one of them. So part of the NOCSE standard is evaluating how well your helmet performs in a barrier impact, which is this linear drop onto a steel anvil, which happens to be a very rigorous test of a football helmet's capabilities because steel anvils are not common on the field of play. So striking one is actually a very severe test of how the helmet performs.
And the severity is judged by a component Noxys calls severity index. It calculates the impact forces of the drop. Each helmet has to stay under what's called a 1200 severity index. And with Riddell's new Diamond Technology helmets, this is the score you'll typically see.
You tend to read that, well, you know, the Noxys standard's been the same since it was first written and first published in 1973, but that's really not the case. I mean, it's been updated, you know, 50 or more times since then, each time making it more rigorous and a tougher test of football helmets. Whenever they get new information you know, about head injuries or even technical information about the way, you know, the instrumentation works or how things should be measured, they've updated the standard along the way. You know, that's not to say that the pace of innovation hasn't kind of accelerated in the past couple of decades as, you know, more attention's being paid to head injuries on the field. You know, it's certainly, you know, the pace of innovation is accelerated.
Riddell says their goal is to have position-specific helmets and skill-level-specific helmets as they continue to try to make the game safer. Part 3 airs on Tuesday, where we go to the University of Iowa and get their reaction to being the only team in the country with all upperclassmen fitted for a precision fit helmet.